What does our line panel make of the state's plan and its execution when it comes to vaccine distribution? Let's get into it. Sophie, what's the point of having a phase 2 if fewer than 100,000 people are in that group?
Well, I mean, the value of having a phase 2 and vaccinating those 100,000 people is that that's the next group that needs to get the shot.
Okay.
But, as opportunities have opened up for the state overall, something really interesting has happened. There's been some notice of apparently the fact that states like New Mexico that have been more cautious, more restrictive in terms of who they will allow to get the shot when, seem to be moving ahead faster and more effectively than states that just kind of threw the doors open at the beginning. Of course, New Mexico's numbers, which are, if not the best in the country, maybe some of the best in the country, are really helped by the work that has happened on Navajo Nation and with other tribes in terms of getting tribal members and other community members their vaccines quickly and effectively, efficiently. But New Mexico's in good shape in terms of vaccination.
Dan, a lot of this comes down to, how we should put this, messaging. The governor's office has been messaging hard about, the good things that are going on. Does it really mean a whole lot to the person on the street if they're 70 and can't quite get a shot quite yet, or they get an appointment and it's out in grants or something?
Yeah, I think, listen, I think that there's some of this is out of their control, obviously, right? I mean, you got private vendors that are doing this. I mean, my wife got her first shot 2-3 weeks ago, and I got notified Monday that I'm going to get my first shot. My wife's a few years younger than I am, not much. So don't anybody start writing letters, and definitely not nearly as far better shape than I am. Let's just say I'm a little bit on the round mound to rebound, got pre-diabetes, and here I am. So I think that there's been some consternation with, people in groups saying, well, I got a shot, and how did that person not get a shot, or how did this person not get a shot? The other thing that I think doesn't help for New Mexico is the constant drumbeat from places like Texas, right, where Texas has been, just get in line and get a shot. They got, more shots than they got people. I mean, I got lots of friends that have driven down to Amarillo and, went to the place in Amarillo, got their shot, came home. 2 weeks later, went down, got their second shot, came home, no questions asked, no problems. And so you see that stuff on the news, you hear that stuff travel out there. It makes people get flustered. But look, I think we're doing the best we can with what we have. Look, I'm as ardent of a critic of the governor, and definitely don't miss an opportunity to go after Democrats whenever I have one. But, I think we all got to pump our brakes and remember this pandemic, that wasn't a playbook, right? You can't say, well, this is what we did 10 years ago. The next person that has to deal with something like this, there's going to be a lot less forgiveness from the public. But I think dealing with what people had, the information that was out there, I think they're doing the best job they can do, and I think everybody just needs to relax. I think what's going to be an interesting conversation about the shots in the next few months is going to be how many people start saying, I'm not getting one, period. I'm not getting it. I'm starting to hear that from folks, and yet you're hearing from the feds that they're going to have travel. They're going to limit the ability to get on airplanes, potentially go to big public events if you don't have it. So that's going to be interesting.
I do want to get to that. Those last 2 points you made. I got a couple more before there. Julianne, there's a question of whether the state would have opened vaccinations to everyone if the Biden administration hadn't demanded it, if you think about it. What do we gain by towing the line here? I mean, it doesn't seem to win us more shots, or am I missing something here?
I mean, I don't think that Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham was going to buck the Biden administration in terms of like their, changing priorities for who gets the vaccine. I think that the state's plan is not, wasn't a big shift away from those federal deadlines that started to come out, once the feds got into action. So, I mean, I think that I have to say that I agree with a lot of things that Dan just said, which, it pains me to say, but I think New Mexicans in general have had a really good, shake on this, and that there have been people who are vulnerable and people who needed extra effort to get it have received that extra effort. And I think it's great to see New Mexico at the top of the list. We all love that.
Sophie, the governor's claiming 50% of us have been vaccinated, but, there's been stories in the Journal that says, look, for vulnerable communities, and Colleen Heald had a particularly interesting story in the Journal. It's lagged when it comes to most vulnerable populations, despite setting the state up to actually get at those populations first. Something hasn't quite happened, but at the same time, that perception is out there that we're doing this, better than everybody out there.
Well, there's sort of two channels here, right? There's the overall push toward herd immunity, and just to clarify, Jean, that when we talk about 50%, we're talking about 50% of adults. Children who are, a very significant part of the population have not received vaccines yet. I believe it's over 16 is where you can start to get the vaccination. So certainly we want to see that push toward herd immunity. And there has been some coverage, some analysis to suggest that we may be closer than we think we are right now because of the number of people who did get the disease before vaccination. Mm-hmm. And so there's that element. But I think you bring up a really important other element, which is that when you look at the subcategories of who has been vaccinated, we see that African Americans, Hispanics, Latinos are getting vaccinated, have been vaccinated at a much lower rate. And that's a real cause for concern. There were some states, I will remind you, that attempted to focus on issues of racial fairness and equity in terms of their vaccine distribution. And that did not go over well in those states. New Mexico really focused on different categories of people. But now as we're looking at those numbers, we can see that what you might have hoped, targeting, focusing on people who had particular health conditions, things like that, didn't get the state as far as it had hoped it would get. In terms, again, of the African American, Hispanic, and to a certain extent Native American communities. Mm-hmm. So, that's a difficult challenge. The folks at the Department of Health and Human Services are telling us that they're working on those things. I think as a community, we have an obligation to hold their feet to the fire on that.
Good point there. Just to make your point, Sophie, as I'm reading it, about 26.3% of African Americans have received their first dose here in New Mexico. For Hispanics and Latinos, who make up about a third of everyone here in New Mexico, that number is 32.1%, but that was at the time of that story coming out a couple of days ago. Daniel, I got a question for you. Is herd immunity a realistic goal with so few people? You mentioned this a second ago, and I want to come back to you on that so many folks are saying they're not going to do this. So is herd immunity a reasonable goal at this point?
I mean, listen, the problem right now that I think with the COVID stuff is there's so much misinformation out there and disinformation that it's hard to understand what is the right information. I think there's a lot of people who think it is. I think there's a lot of people who think, hey, listen, we're just going to go, we're going to just battle through this like we do everything else out there. There's other people out there who say, take this serious. This could kill you. Look, I had COVID over Christmas. Didn't affect me at all. I had a little bit of a, slight fever for a day and was fine. I've got friends, I've got a lady that works for me who's leaving the end of this week to go to Seattle. Her 46-year-old sister contracted COVID in Arizona. And through all the stuff they had to do, her throat is now too small because of scar tissue from trachs that they have to send her to Seattle to either give her a permanent trach or do a surgery to open up her throat so she can breathe. So there's just so many stories out there that I think that so many people are just thinking, I'll get it. What about it? My concern is some of the people that I hear in my circles that tell me, don't worry about it, I'll get it, are the last people you want getting COVID, right? I mean, it's not, it's one thing for my son, the athlete, to tell you, I'll get COVID and let me see what happens. It's sometime you might be like, okay. It's another thing when your buddy who's 68 years old, 375 pounds and wheezes when he walks tells you, I'm going to get the herd immunity process. I just think now medically, there's folks out there that say it's going to happen. They say sometime around the end of April, May. Well, but there's some thoughts out there that, you're hearing some reports that sometime maybe around the end of May that we may reach that tipping point with herd immunity in the United States. I don't know. I just don't think it's worth risking.
Let me bring another thing into this. Sophie, Daniel mentioned, of course, this idea of a vaccination passport or an app, let businesses know, other places know, people who have had their shots, all that kind of thing. The state's been mum on this so far. Any predictions on where the governor might be on this? It's a tough one to sell to some folks.
It is. I'll just say anecdotally that there are a handful of people I've talked to who, not so sure about taking the vaccine. And then they'll say, but if my father's nursing home requires me to get it in order to see him, I'm going to do it. If it's necessary in order to travel, I'm going to do it. So it seems to me that there are some people who are on the fence and for whom those incentives, disincentives, whatever you want to call them, might actually be effective. But beyond that, what we're seeing at the national level, what we're hearing from the Biden administration is that it's private industry that is driving a fair amount of the interest in this sort of program. Airlines thinking about, how can we bring people back onto planes, have them feel safe? Cruise ships thinking that, other businesses.
There you go. Got to step in, unfortunately. Got to step in. I'm just a little short on time, Sophie, my fault. We got to include Santa Fe, of course, for Julianne and her folks up there, too. A lot of travelers from Texas, so this could be a big deal. We're out of time with this group and turn now to our land and environment reporter, Laura Paskus.